This was it. This was the moment where I'd be attached to the character of Max Payne, the game itself. Once he released his finger from the trigger, it was over for him, but the start for me. To make any sense of that revelation, we needed to go back to when I first played the game and fell in love with it.
Hello, the name's BrianTheBrain, and it's been a few years since I have finished Max Payne 1 for the first time. Ever since the moment I was thrown into the first level, I was hooked, and could not stop playing for the life of me. It was like Max himself was telling me that I needed to go on, and that was all about it. After all, how could you not be addicted to the intense action, the brilliant story, the characters and their arcs, the bullet time, and being able to infinitely exploit meds? This game and its ability to keep itself interesting throughout its entire 5 hours of duration is truly captivating, and there aren't a whole lot of games that can say that about that I've played. I am not alone in thinking so either, as this game is loved by many, and it's the game that revolutionized the third-person shooter genre, and introduced bullet time into gaming. Amongst the people that love it just as much as I do, people debate on what is the best aspect of this game. Some people say the gameplay, some people say the story, some people say the faces Max himself makes, and even though I relatively agree with gameplay being Max Payne's greatest attribute, I would still say that the seriousness of the game takes the cake. Just how realistically and brilliantly it is able to capture the situation of a man trapped in perpetual depression, and his quest in trying to close that gaping hole in his past, never downplaying anything and making it into a joke. And how his interactions with the people he comes across feel so real. This depiction of New York feels just as living as the real New York, and its night sky coupled with the cold and harsh snow throughout the game adds to the game's dark tone in spades. The jokes the game makes aren't in the game's expense. The comedy of the game actually adds to how real these characters feel, and how conditioned they are in handling situations as bleak as the one Max is currently in. It's common in noir films and forensics work to downplay the severity of the tension in a certain situation with dark humor, as a way of mentally coping with the violence these characters see all the time, and we could definitely see it the most of Max, who was the most affected by the actions committed by other characters, whether it be from having his family taken away by a group of drug addicts, being ambushed by the Finitos, or when he finds out who really was behind the murder of his family. Throughout the game, Max cracks jokes at the other characters as a way to keep himself calm after all of the shooting and killing he does in the levels, down to pretty much all of his interactions with Mona Sachs, his reaction to the Finitos making fun of his name, and when he catches Vinny Gognitti, all of the dark humor he's known for, and of course the faces he makes in the cutscenes. The reasoning for all of this is not only because of the fact that he needs a way to cope with all the killing he does, but also to keep assuring himself that what he's doing is right, despite the fact that it isn't. His journey to take down Asir, the corporation responsible for the murder of his family, is not one of actual morale, but simply just to avenge his family. He completely goes against his current mission of being an undercover cop just to finally kill the person responsible for all the pain he's gone through. It's here where the contrast of the seriousness of the game and its comedy become the most apparent, because to keep himself relatively sane through this adventure that is filled with nothing but bloodshed and revenge, he jokes with those that he's about to kill, and those who look to help him achieve his goal. It's all what makes the character of Max feel so real, and how his interactions with the other characters that he comes across both add to the realism of Max, but also those characters. Max goes through so much, and to truly show just how much he goes through in this game, I will talk about each of my favorite moments of seriousness in the game, and how the game's comedy further adds to both it and the realism attached to it. And what better way to start than with the first mission of the game? Let's talk about... This mission sees Max going into the Roscoe Street station through the train, after having been told by BB to meet up with Alex Balder, the man who was Max's only friend and person he could talk to since the murder of his family. And later on in the level, Max confronts Alex face to face, and Max fills him in on what's going on and what he had to go through in order to get to Alex in the first place. Alex is surprised by the fact that this is what Pino and his men's doing, and while they're still talking, BB kills Alex and leaves without a trace. Max yells out for Alex's name, but all he is left with is the silence of his once friend, complete with his lifeless and accusing stare. The man that helped keep Max sane for the past 3 years since the murder of his family is now dead as well, making it so now, Max truly has nothing to lose anymore. And if there is anything you should fear, it's a man that has nothing to lose. The actions of BB have only made Max even more cynical, and is what triggers Max to go rogue, and stop both whoever it was who killed his family, but also who killed Alex, all by himself. There is no comedy here, no jokes being cracked to downplay the situation. Max isn't truly on that level yet, but instead, just the seriousness of an already depressed man seeing his best friend ruthlessly murdered. Another one of the game's best attributes is how good it is at making you feel unwavering empathy for Max. Despite all of the senseless killing he does throughout the game, it never once justifies Max's actions and wants to make you feel sorry for Max and hope that one day he would stop the senseless violence. It wouldn't be the only time someone who he grew to like more would die, as later on in the game in Nothing to Lose, Mona Sachs quote-unquote dies while trying to protect Max, but when the elevator comes back after Max takes out the mercenaries, her body is gone. He knows that she isn't dead, but he uses this as fuel to tell himself that he truly has nothing to lose anymore, hence the name of the mission. Both Alex's death and Mona's fake death are amongst my favorite moments in the game when it comes to showing how Max just keeps losing more and more until he has nothing, and how it ties into Max's ever-growing desire for vengeance. It's due to Max's trauma from losing everything and everyone he had that he has two of some of the best levels in the game, and those are the nightmare levels. These two levels of the game are everything that Max fears on the inside. He's just good at hiding it on the outside. These fear-inducing, claustrophobic levels are the darkest parts of the entire game, down to the screams of Max's daughter before she is shot and killed, to Max himself shooting his wife since Max feels as though his insistence on continuing his police work and not being there for his family is what killed him in the end, to the blood trails he had to walk on. These levels are everything this game stands for, all in one dark, blood-stained package. When I had first played this game, that first nightmare level made me feel uneasy and fearful, and when I got to the blood trails, it only amplified those feelings. To this day, I have never seen another game capture the nightmares of a depressed man as well as this, and it's by far the most serious part of the game. As I was entrenched in these feelings of uneasiness, I was also enticed in that all by how Atmospheric Remedy, the people who made the game, were able to make these parts of the game. It doubles as a way to show us more of Max and what he's really thinking about when he's on his crusade, and also to give us more context to the murder of his family and why he goes to such lengths in order to avenge them. The second nightmare level happens due to Nicole Horn, the person who Max is really after, gives Max an overdose of Valkyr, the substance that Asir used on the people that killed Max's family, and he passes out and enters another nightmare. He once again experiences the death of his family, but in a much more twisted way due to the effects of the Valkyr drug. It's here where Max encounters letters that break the fourth wall and tell him that he's in a video game, making him self-aware about the fact that he's just a fictional character. He tries to shake it off by saying it's funny as hell, but it's the most horrifying thing he can think of. It's all due to his Valkyr overdose, and this overdosage eventually leads to a scene where the past Max himself kills his wife, and the real Max kills the past Max. Lots of Maxes going on here. It's also in this scene where we get to see Max's wife try to tell him about a strange memo about Vikings, which we now know to link to Valkyr and Asir's operations, but Max brushes it aside as he tells her that she can tell him about it this evening. We find out that it was that same evening where his wife and daughter were killed, and we can finally understand why Max blames himself for their murder. She was about to tell him something about Project Valhalla, the original project where Valkyr was created, but Max didn't want to hear her out for time reasons. We can see behind him a face of Max smiling, echoing the words of Jack Lupino before, when he was going on and on about satanic rituals and fallen angels, and the contrast between how he views himself and Lupino because of this mistake he made. He wakes up and continues his quest for vengeance, and that leads to... In continuing his crusade, Max gets a call by BB once again telling him to meet up with him at the top of the choir communications garage, and Max begins to suspect BB for everything that had led up to this point after the death of Alex, and the one who killed Alex to begin with and got Max framed for it. He meets up with BB to confirm his suspicions, where BB admits to what Max has suspected, and he and his paid backup try to kill Max. This scene, while it has one of Max's best funny faces, it's also great at showcasing just how much closer Max is to getting to his goal, finally being able to kill the person who killed Alex earlier. Once again, killing BB right here and now wouldn't change anything or affect anything. He's simply doing it for the sake of taking down those responsible for how shitty his life became. Not like he really had a choice in this mission anyway. BB did try to kill Max first after all, but him killing BB was still more so fueled by revenge. I think this would be a good time to address all of the cutscenes you can activate by pressing the use button on an interactable item like a piece of paper or radio as well, and how each one further adds to the context of everything and gives Max more of a moral compass and a justification for his terrible actions. A great example of this would be in the mission Nothing to Lose, where Max blasts through his way up to the highest level of the Asir headquarters, and he finds a computer that lets him look into their database, and he sees all of the horrible things any evil corporation would be planning. Plans for world domination, criminal plans, illegal wiretap recordings, and the most evil of them all, internet porn. No wonder why Max wants to stop these guys. Throughout the game, Max desperately tries to find justifications for his actions, both as a way to make him feel better about himself and to prove that he's doing the right thing, as even he knows everything he's been doing hasn't been out of the kindness of his heart. He even cringes when the news frames Max for the death of Alex, and for the people he did actually kill at the Roscoe subway, as if he's conflicted with himself and knows that what he's doing is fucked up. At the end of the backstabbing bastard mission, there's a payphone that rings, and when you interact with it, a man named Alfred Woden tells you to meet up with him at the Asgard building so he can give Max the name of his enemy. It is at the Asgard building where Max finds out that he's supposed to be after Nicole Horn. Max and Alfred's interaction is due to the fact that they both benefit for the death of Nicole, much like how earlier in the game, Vladimir and Max interact with each other, since they could both benefit from the fall of the Puccinello family. In that mission, Vlad tells Max to reclaim a ship whose crew pledged allegiance to the Puccinello family, so that Vlad can both get the ship back, but also the weapons, and Max benefits by getting all the guns he needs to take down the Puccinellos in their manor. Vlad and Max in particular joke a lot together, since Vlad has a fun demeanor to him, and Max always keeps his dark humor wherever he goes, which causes the two to bounce off really well together. This whole mutual benefit shtick occurs multiple times throughout the game, and Max helping these guys out is believable due to how he's gone rogue, and will do anything he can to get his revenge. Everything Max does leads up to the most serious part of the game yet, where he finally gets what he's been wanting since the start of the game, and all of that happens in... All the gunshots before had led up to everything until this point. Max knows that he's up to the final boss, and he prepares himself by making sure all of his guns are reloaded. He fuels himself with the memories of him, his wife, and his daughter when they were still one big happy family, and he goes in with nothing to lose. You, the player, also can't wait to finally end this bitch's life, as she is amongst one of the only people in the game who actually deserve to die. It pumps you up for what's about to come next, and what's next is the final confrontation between Max and Nicole. The two know this is where it ends, and only one of them will make it out of this situation. Honor among killers, as Max would say. Nicole tries to justify her actions, much in the same way as Max trying to justify his actions throughout the course of the game. It's as if the two were pillars on the opposite end of each other, the two sides of evil and less evil. Max isn't exactly a hero, and at this point, he knows it just as well as we do. But he also knows that ending Asir and Nicole here and now would not only avenge the people who died to their actions, but also give him closure and finally make him be able to part ways with his wretched past. It would not really benefit him in any way. Revenge is a one-way street after all, but Max's ego clouds his judgment, and he isn't willing to listen to reason, not when he's this close. Max is the perfect embodiment of an anti-hero, and is one of the most compelling and complex out of the bunch, doing good in his way, while also bringing about problems that will continue to linger with him in the later games. It's another one of my favorite aspects of the game, in that problems don't end like an episode of a Saturday morning cartoon. Max's actions have repercussions, and while it may or may not fix a problem he is trying to fix, it also may or may not create new problems for him in the future, such as Max's actions in killing the mobsters in the Roscoe subway, and how that directly tied to the death of Alex. Had Max not interfered, Alex would probably still be alive, and him being further fuel to stop who caused his death would have never happened, and would still be a law-abiding undercover cop trying to uncover the secret to the death of his family, instead of a rogue who goes on a crusade to stop him himself. His quest creates more and more problems throughout, and now he's reached the biggest of them all, face to face with the one responsible for the death of his family and Alex. He's looking at the eye of the beast in its natural habitat, and all he can think of is ending it right here and now. Nicole tries to kill off Max with her agents, but when that fails, she tries to escape as a helicopter comes in and tries to shoot down Max. Max is able to avoid it and follow where Nicole is running off to, killing off the rest of the agents who try to get in Max's way. This mad chase eventually leads to Max being sealed off as Nicole tries to escape in the same helicopter to try to kill Max earlier. Max is able to shoot off the support beams of the radio mast and explodes the base of it, and the mast falls on the helicopter, completely destroying it and the ground below it as it all falls down to the ground, killing Nicole once and for all. You can hear the relief in Max's voice, the sheer euphoria in Max's expressions after going through everything he's been to get to this point and finally end this once and for all, as all of the police sirens and voices of the SWAT team are distant, drowned out by the amount of sheer relief he's feeling. Alfred Woden is there amongst the crowd, smiling at Max for finally getting rid of Nicole. He would be able to get Max out of jail easily, as he had promised before. Alfred is happy that it's finally over, as well as Max. That made the three of us. If there is any word I could use to describe how amazing this game is, it would be cinematic. This game genuinely felt like both a movie and a comic book at the same time, but also felt like something that could happen in the real world, for the most part that is. There's so many other good moments of seriousness and comedy in this game that I could talk about, but I mainly just wanted to cover the ones that were my favorite, and also the main ones in the game's story. I find something new to appreciate about this game each time I play it, and stuff that happens that I didn't even know could happen. While I was playing through the game for this video, I found that if you shoot the speaker that's playing music in the elevator in the mission of fear that gives man the wings, Max himself will say thank you, and I bursted out in laughter when he said that.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Max. There's similar stuff like that throughout the game, and it makes the game even more replayable than it already is, which is quite the feat because this game is incredibly addicting to play. That addiction doesn't even come from just the gameplay. I also love re-experiencing the story to this game, and I never skip any of the cutscenes each time I play through it. It's why I said before that the seriousness of the game and how the comedy adds to it is its greatest attribute, since it creates an atmosphere that only a few games can truly capture, and it's unlike most of the games I've played. I can see why this game is as revered as it is today, and why so many people, including myself, love it as much as we do. This game is brilliant writing, script, and characters are one of my inspirations as a writer, and it's why I think it stands above the gameplay as the best part of the game. It's a journey to see how Max evolves as a character from before his family dies, to when he kills the person responsible for his family's death. The game is conclusive on its own, but it will eventually get 2 more sequels that stay true to what I said before when it came to Max's actions only introducing new problems, and how his pursuit for revenge made him into a wanted man that other crime organizations and syndicates want to take down. I'll likely do videos on Max Payne 2 and 3 in the future, though if I do ever get to that, I'll be talking about those games in a different way from how I talked about the first game. With all that being said, thank you guys for your time. I hope you all have a good rest of your day. Now, if you excuse me, I need to take some painkillers.